It will serve you through your entire life. You will be able to grow your career. You will be able to have successful relationships. You will be able to have friends. You will be able to have success. You will be able to do literally everything and anything that you want. People will love you and hang out with you if you can just have the ability to be wrong.
All right, guys, don't judge me, but I'm drinking white wine on this podcast, and that's because I'm the only one that's allowed to drink wine in my house currently, and we had to use it for cooking shrimp scampi tonight. And yeah, that's literally why I'm drinking this. But I don't diss the white wine. I don't want anybody to judge me for that. I know I love red wine better, but I don't mind some white wine. It gets a lot of backlash these days.
White wine is fantastic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely inferior, but yes.
Exactly.
It's all right.
You're definitely a little pansy, but
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. But no, the one of the things I wanted to announce here on the podcast is that I'm going to be a dad. You guys have all known this already, but for everybody else who's out there maybe listening, but I just found out about 3 months ago, before lockdown. This is not a Rona baby. This is a regular old 2020 baby.
Not a My Sharona.
Can you give us details on how that happened, Dillon?
Well, let me explain in detail. But that was one big development for this episode. The other big development is that we have a new guest on this podcast, actually, that we've never had before. And he's around here somewhere. He'll join any second now. But no, it is Jesse Bilsten, everybody. Hello, Jesse. Hello.
Hi.
Jesse Bilstein.
That's all he's going to say.
Van Wiederstein.
Van Bilstein.
Yes, I am a cousin-in-law
There
to
you go.
two of you. One of you?
I know that you're technically Luke's brother-in-law, correct?
Correct.
And then the rest of us, I guess, we're cousin-in-laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the
I still
term.
meet a criteria.
I don't think I know another cousin-in-law. You might be the only one I know of. I'm sure we have some. I just can't think of any right now. Is there another cousin-in-law we have?
Pull out the family tree.
Yeah, like
You've gotten rid of all of them. They've been pruned.
Yeah.
Only one left.
There's only one left.
I don't know who it is. But one of the things that we wanted to talk about today on this show was the fact that now that 3 out of 5 of us on the show are dads, we wanted to, or at least I wanted to, delve into the topics of life lessons. Because obviously I'm starting to gear up to be a dad. Jesse's a dad. Luke's been a dad for a while. Joel and Cody do not have kids yet.
We are kids.
That we know of.
Yeah.
We are children.
We are
children of the corn.
Children of the corn.
But we thought maybe, I know we're not like wise sages. We're all in our 30s. It's not like we have amazing advice we can give out. But we wanted to talk about life lessons.
Let's,
Yes, 30s. 30s. Definitely in my 30s.
Something like that.
That's
Something around.
Definitely not born in the 70s.
Somewhere around
listen
there.
up, Jesse.
How old are we supposed to? How old are you, Jesse?
I was born 1 year after Star Wars A New Hope came out.
Whoa, dude! I had no idea. Dude, you were aging.
68?
You were aging incredibly well.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
Dude looks younger than me.
Seriously.
It's insane.
Are you being serious right now?
I am dead serious, yeah.
I am shocked, man. I thought for sure you're like. I thought you were like maybe my age or younger. Dude, you're aging. Oh, dude, I'm doing terrible. This isn't going well.
Well, this is fantastic. I'll take these compliments all day long. We just keep this rolling, yes.
Every night before Jesse goes to bed, he just dips his face in oil.
Yeah. Drinks the elixir of unicorn blood. Apparently.
Canola oil.
Corn blood.
Canola oil.
Yeah, my secret is to stay indoors and play video games a lot.
There it is. Well, then we should all be doing this well, then. I don't know. Something's not
Yeah.
going right. But all right, well, most of us are in our 30s, apparently. I'm still like speechless. I can't believe I had no idea. Holy crap. Okay, well, nonetheless, that means you have more wisdom probably than the rest of us because you've been around a lot
I've
longer.
made a lot of mistakes, Dillon.
Even better. Even better. But yeah, that's one of the things we want to talk about is actually just like regardless if we have a kid or don't have a kid, what would be something that if we all did, what would be like
I
life
hope you're
lessons?
having a kid.
I hope so too. I mean, that's what she tells me. I'm still waiting for Mari to call me back to make sure we can get this all cleared up. But
You are not the father.
but I want to see like what you guys' take, especially from Luke and Jesse. I don't care what Joel and Cody have to say. In fact, you guys can leave this podcast. Get out of here.
Yay.
Oh, thank God.
All right. See you guys tomorrow.
No!
Palm Springs, right?
But I just wanted, like, obviously I'm thinking about becoming a dad here, so I'm trying to think of, like, all the life lessons that I could pass on to my kid. And you also, like, we could also talk about the things that we've gotten from our folks and maybe some of the things that we disagreed with, maybe some of the things that we did agree with. Because I know, like, it's old cliche that a lot of parenting is just doing what your parents did, but I think sometimes you have to break the mold a little bit of things that you're like, no, I don't think that's probably the way that should have been done. I mean, I think we all assume that our parents were well-intentioned, they were doing their best they could, and no parent is perfect. But if there was something that we could change, what would be like a life lesson? I don't know. It's maybe a vague question, but maybe to be more specific, what would be like a... Go ahead.
Where do we begin, Jesse?
Do we start at like the normally appropriate level and then you dive deep into the not appropriate level?
I think so. Let's start with baby steps here.
All right. Well, what would be like a life lesson you would give to your kids for dating? Like, this is not necessarily something that you have to wait till like they're a teenager or something like that. Little kids have like crushes. Now they're not going to date, of course. It's inappropriate, but like there's obviously like attractions that human beings have to other human beings when they're really young. So what would be like a life lesson you would give to your kid, I guess, when they would start to date, or at least it would be appropriate? Because again, like I wouldn't do like the elementary school, like, oh, the girl hit me, and it's like, no, that means that, you know, she likes you. It's like, oh, okay, we all know that. That's not necessarily like something profound. What would be something that you could pass on that would actually be useful?
I want to know actually what. So, I mean, we all had our parents like say these things, these little pearls of wisdom to us. I want to start there. Like, what did we learn from our parents that we thought was weird or funny? And then maybe me and Jesse will dive in.
We dropped to Cody.
Oh no, we dropped Joel. I think we lost him.
Joel
sorry,
left.
we dropped to Joel.
We dropped to Joel. He'll be back in a second.
Joel pieced out.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Joel, but
advice our parents gave us.
Yeah, advice our parents gave us. Yeah, Joel will join back in a second. His internet apparently dropped out. But yeah, advice our parents gave us. But I guess as far as like, what would be something that you guys can remember that your parents told you that you're like, do this, and then, you know, maybe like reflecting back on that.
My parents gave me the same advice over and over and over again, but it changed. Like the meaning of it to me changed as I kind of processed it from young adult to mature adult. And it was essentially, whoever you are dating now is not going to be the person that you end up with. Mm-hmm. And when I was super young, I was like, yeah, of course, obviously.
I already knew that.
And then you get a little bit older and you're like, well, how do you know?
Yeah.
You know, like, I really like this person. Like, I can't stop thinking about them. Like, this is obviously who I'm going to marry. And then, like, as you get a little bit more mature, you're like, yeah, I'm probably not going to end up with anybody because I'm pretty messed up. So hopefully I find somebody who likes me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I feel the same. Like I feel like it was a lot of like, you know, don't invest, you know, so much time and energy or whatever. Like don't take it so seriously, kind of a thing. I kind of agree with that. I think it was a lot of that. But again, at that age, like high school and that kind of band of age, you're just like you're not thinking about any advice at all. That's not what you're thinking about. It's the last thing you're thinking about.
You're in a different headspace in high school.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah, when you do have like a crush, you can't stop thinking about them.
Right.
Yes.
At all. Like all day, every day. That's all you can think about.
You're like, I couldn't care less what Napoleon Bonaparte did in this time frame. All I'm thinking about is what that girl is going to do as soon as we walk out of this classroom. Will I say hi to her, type of thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Priorities. But Cody, what was something that Dad told you that really stood out to you that you remember very specifically, and you go, man, this is it. Man's got some pearls.
He told me to propose 3 weeks into dating. So
this is true. Our dad has been very much encouraging that we get married as quickly as possible. I
Believe in love at first sight.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that, like, I mean, obviously our dad is well intentioned in that, but maybe that would be something that we would completely disagree with him on, which is, at least like this would be something I would tell my kid, is that when it comes to dating, like there's two categories, and you have to understand what category you're going to fall into. Are you dating just because you want to get out and have fun and just meet people, or are you dating for marriage? And like, I feel like you have to distinguish which one of those are, or like which category you fall into. If you're dating for fun, like we could go into the inappropriate stuff where it's like, all right, buddy, I think I think maybe this is a different conversation between if you have a son or a daughter. There's a whole different category of things you could say. But I know as far as like a profound lesson that I could tell, like, because I'm gonna have a baby boy, I would tell him, at least when he got older enough to date, I'd be like, listen, my life lesson is, at least from my perspective, is that if you don't agree with this woman on religion, politics, money, and kids, there's a very good chance it's not going to work out. Very good chance it's not going to work out. I'm not saying
or
it
something
can't.
else has to be exceptionally good.
Yes.
Yes. You guys have to be the most nonchalant, laid-back people ever. Then maybe there's a chance. But if you don't agree on those four things, even if one of them is out of sync, it's still bad news. It's like, I think those all things are actually kind of intertwined a little bit. They all kind of coincide with each other a little bit. So that'd be one piece of dating advice I'd give. What about you, Joel? Haven't heard from you. You dropped out. You left.
Yeah, I got bored.
You too?
Dating advice?
Yeah, you're a married man. Oh,
Your
God, I'm
future
joking.
child.
Yeah, I couldn't really remember anything either, Joel.
I know.
That's why it's so difficult. Because I'm like, what am I going to tell my kid? I haven't learned anything.
I feel like our mom and dad were just like, "You got a girl?"
I know, yeah. No, seriously. I don't think they gave us any advice whatsoever. Mm-hmm. It was just like they were very happy that we actually found somebody who would talk to us. And they didn't really care. And I kind of still feel like that today. That just stuck with me. If I wasn't with Anissa, I'd just be super happy that somebody was talking to me. I wouldn't be thinking like, I don't know, when I was dating, it wasn't like constantly like, what do I need to do to make sure this works out? It was just like, this is the best time of my life. And then when that wears off and like the first big fight happens, then like emotions really set in where you're just like, where all of a sudden you can't trust him. Because like, for me, it was like, I get super angry and then all logic goes out the window. I'm like, I can't be with this person for the rest of my life. But logically, I know, I'm like, I've been with them for a year now. And just today, I've decided I can't do it just because of this one fight.
Right.
So I guess my only advice would be like, try as best you can to be as level-headed about everything.
That's a huge one. That's a huge one. Like, take everything with like a dose of perspective. Because like you can get so pissed at someone that you want to just like, okay, I could murder this person right now and I would be happy about it. But it's like, yeah, give it 30 seconds and you'll probably feel different.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Don't get on the emotional roller coaster for very long.
Yeah.
Try to get off.
And in our parents' defense, like, I mean, I hear what you're saying about like, it's a common theme amongst our folks, at least, that they literally just were pushing us constantly, like, get married, settle down, have kids so we can have grandkids. Like, it's just been a reoccurring cliche at this point. But in their defense, I doubt it would be much better if they were really picky about it. It'd probably be worse if they were just like, this girl just ain't gonna do. Like, you gotta send her back. That would have caused a whole set of problems. But I don't know. I hear the complaints, at least. And Joel, you have a cat behind your head, apparently.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or did.
There
did.
was a second ago.
Disappeared.
Yeah. Do you agree with this, Jesse, or what was your folks like? Did they tell you any solid dating advice?
Oh, so I was raised out in the middle of nowhere by two raging hippies.
Right.
Let's see. No girl I ever brought home was good enough for mom. And dad just told me to date as much as possible.
Wow.
But loved every girl I brought home and thought that was the one.
What a
Wow.
great
dynamic.
Yeah.
there.
So
Jeez.
being raised by feral wolves in Poison Oak. Yeah, it was interesting. I definitely was not pushed in any sense. It was more the opposite. It's like, don't settle down. You know, once it's after like 3 months, get rid of her. find anyone.
I've so for the rest of the crew here, I've been to the house that Jesse grew up in. It is literally like if you drive to the top of the 33 and then keep going to the top of the mountain, and then there's like a random house at the top. That's where Jesse lived. Like it was in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
I got 3 channels, one of which was a religious like broadcast, probably from some sort of cult in the middle of nowhere. And we had to like have the bunny rabbit ears on the television, and you had to change the bunny rabbit ears to get different channels. And then we had NBC and ABC, and then CBS every once in a while. And other than that, I just built tree forts and got poison oak over and over and over again.
Oh, dude, I hear
that was
you on
my
poison
childhood.
oak. Poison oak is the worst. Oh man, I hate it. Well, dude,
Yeah.
I'm learning more and more about you all the time, Jesse. I'm just like the well keeps getting deeper. I'm like, dude, how old are you? You lived where? Holy crap! The story just gets more and more interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess another I think we all kind of like a general theme here go with dating. What would be like a life lesson you guys would have for like success? Like when it comes to work ethic, like what would be something that you guys, because I think at least I know I can speak for us. I don't know if I can speak for you, Jesse, because again, I'm learning more and more about you all the time. Our dads, at least, were very hard workers. And I know we can say that about them. Those guys worked their butts off, and they still do to this day. So they've been good role models in that sense. But I don't know if there's necessarily like any wisdom they passed on per se about work itself. I mean, we could do an old cliche and just say like, there's no substitute for hard work, but I mean, you can learn that literally anywhere. But I guess, would you guys have any life lessons you guys would expose? I'm trying to think of a word here. Proclaim from the top of the mountain.
I mean, I think I agree, Dillon. Like, obviously, our dads are like very, very similar, right? They worked to themselves to the bone, and they like instilled that into us, right? Like you have to work yourself like a dog in order to kind of earn your keep, right? Which I think is a noble thing. But as I get older and more mature, and I meet different people and kind of branch out a little bit, Jesse's been a big help in this, is the ability to work smart.
Yes.
That's kind of a newer concept to me. Like, you can work hard digging ditches your entire life and make minimum wage.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's not a rewarding job in different ways. But I think I'm learning slowly the value of my time. Yeah. Yeah. And what it's really worth, right? And like what can actually come of that. It's not worth working 30 years at a job and just like getting like a mediocre pension. Because you can do so much more with that.
Yeah. Just, you want to add on to that? Because it sounds like, like you I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to say it, but you work for GoDaddy, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, you can say literally anything about me.
Again, learning more and more. So I'm assuming you get to that level by working, like you said, working smart. Because I agree with everything Luke just said, which is, I think a generation ago, or at least maybe not, maybe that's overgeneralizing a little bit, but our family and the roots of our family kind of come from not so much higher education, not so much white collar, but very good, earnest, working blue collar family. But like you said, like there's a limit to that of at least an income. And I think there's something to be said for that. So maybe you can add more onto that.
Yeah. I would say I know Ray fairly well. Obviously not as well as 2 of the people on this call. And probably not nearly as well as the other 4 people on this call. But a lot of the same values that Ray exhibits, my father also exhibited. He was still is an exceptionally hard worker, small business owner. He's just a little background. He was an architecture major from Cal Poly who came from Fresno. Not Fres, yes, but Fresno. Came over to the beautiful area of San Luis Obispo, the Central Coast. got enamored with the area, graduated from architecture, went back over to Fresno to design parking lots, decided that was a terrible thing and did not want to do that ever for the rest of his life, and decided to make jewelry for the rest of his life. So definitely hard worker, spun up his own business, grew it to like three shops, one down in Santa Barbara and 2 up in San Luis Obispo.
Whoa.
So definitely, grounded out. And that, work ethic, he definitely passed on to me. There was definitely a push to get a job very early, and to make my own money. And a lot of the things that I had an allowance, but it was not a very small, or it wasn't a very big allowance. Like it was like, I couldn't exactly do anything with it. I think it was like $1 a week or something like that. So it was enough if you like saved up and saved up and saved up, you might be able to go to the movies in like a couple months. But everything else was chores around the house. So everything around the house, like I could, I learned to wash a car really, really well. And he paid me based on the performance of the car. So like how well it was. So like if I just did the outside, I maybe only got like $3 or $4, but if I like vacuumed the inside, then I got like $5, $6, $7. And then if I like wiped it all down and like polished everything and like did the wheels, like, so it was kind of this early, I would say life lesson of the amount of effort that you put into something, sets the amount of monetary compensation that you get.
Right.
But then he also, once I reached a certain age, as Luke was kind of alluding to, really tried to teach me about like passive income. How do you create something that can act as a safety net for you, like in between jobs or at some point when you are ready to retire? How can you set up something that will actually be making you money passively on the back end? And for him, that was real estate. He was able to essentially pay for everything in the family from real estate. And so I learned a lot about real estate from him growing up.
Interesting. It's funny because you mentioned about like, I've tried to tell people before too, and I mean, people might disagree with me about this, but I've always thought like when it comes to retirement, I always thought it was like a really bad plan to just build up a 401k, get to a certain age, and then just start taking it all, and hopefully you don't run out before you die. I always thought like that's a bad plan. Like I wouldn't do that. Like
that is a bad plan.
Yeah. Like it doesn't seem like that's a good, wise move, and so many people do it. And I mean, I'm not bashing 401ks. I think they're all right, but
well, just the way that you said it sounded bad. I mean, like you build up enough to where you're not having to take it out of the 401k. The 401k is just paying you, and it's not getting smaller. Then that sounds like a great idea.
Right, exactly. And I think that's kind of where like I think people need to realize that retirement is not just building up one big savings account and then spending all of it before you die. Like I think you need to have some sort of passive income that is not depleting before you die. Exactly. And I think that's a much wiser move. And where do you get that from? And there's a bunch of different ways on how to do that. I know that one person who's really smart with money around here is Cody, actually, as a matter of fact. Not to get too much into the details of things, but...
Yeah, but he's asleep, so...
Yeah, we lost
He's
him.
investing right now. He's actually trading options on the...
I was just buying, some stocks.
Tesla stock?
Even though the market's closed.
After hours trading.
You were buying Bitcoin? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah,
Cryptocurrencies? Actually,
yeah.
I want to know, just real quick side note. Jesse, are you a fan of cryptocurrencies?
Yes.
Ooh.
I don't own or trade very much of them, but I am a fan of them. They tickle the libertarian bone that has grown smaller and smaller as I've gotten older and older. But it's still ticklish.
Okay, a little ticklish, but all right. Anyway, back on track. Well, I don't know if you knew this about Cody, Jesse, but he just completed a movie that took him 13 years. And that to me is like the definition of hard work. Like that's where like I don't
persistence.
Like, yeah, that is persistence, and like that's the definition of like I don't know where passion and hard work meet, but maybe they're like kind of parallel with each other. But I just know like that type of dedication is a whole other level of patience that I'm like, dude, I don't know, because like I look at like our dads who work these jobs that it's debatable whether or not they actually liked them or didn't. I mean, I'm assuming they weren't passionate about it. But I think they were fulfilled in taking care of their families. I think that's a happy medium. But I think as far as what Cody's doing over here, it's like that's a whole other level of like, dude, just 13 years not getting paid to do this. Just I'm gonna make this thing.
Well, that's the story of an artist, right? Like
The starving artist, even though Cody's not starving.
No.
I'm starving.
The story of an artist, like
Oh, yeah.
someone, you're willing to sacrifice for your art. Like that's what it is. A lot of people, yeah.
It's kind of the great risk, though, right? It's like that's the startup dream. I mean, there's a lot of the young kids that are whole Silicon Valley is like based on that, where it's like, okay, 17 to probably 25, they're just pushing them to create a company, work for free, build up a whole bunch of capital, and then hopefully it turns into something profitable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that, I mean, if you couldn't guess what we're trying to do with this podcast, maybe we should get your advice as to what we should do differently outside of, maybe inviting Cody back on the podcast constantly.
Talking to me?
I rest my case. We can go through that. But Cody, what would be a life lesson you would give about work? Since you're a good model for persistence in. I mean, it took Michelangelo 10 years to create the Sistine Chapel. It took you 13 years to create one movie. That's a lot of patience, my man.
About work?
Yeah.
How many versions of Premiere came out in that time?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I started in iMovie, so then it went through Final Cut, and then it went through Premiere. So I went through 3 editing applications in that 13 years.
And he's not joking.
Yeah. I know he's not joking. That's a lot of extra work.
Yeah. But that's the dedication. That's what that is.
Did you have to reshoot anything or resample or?
That's the biggest reason why it took that long, is because I did go back probably 25 times.
It was digital, right? Like it was like a CGI.
Yeah.
So did you start it in like 480 and then go to 720 and then go to 1080?
Pretty much. I started out, 480. Exactly. In iMovie.
Seriously?
4:3.
That's so wild.
Yeah. Yep.
And the best part of this whole thing is that Cody's working on a sequel. He wasn't done. He was like, "There's got to be a trilogy." I'm like, "That's a whole other level, man."
And I finished the first scene today.
Oh, whoa.
Number 1 down.
But this is the lesson in working smart, though. Cody learned, and he's got, a team of people working now, and here we are, a month in, and you already have a scene done. So it's like, this obviously is going to be a way faster process.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
How long would that scene have taken you if you did it?
Well, I actually did do this one by myself because it was easy enough to do. But it probably would have taken a little longer, probably twice as long, 2 months to do.
That's crazy, man. Just that, again, this is maybe an apples to oranges a little bit, because when it comes to the work that you have to do, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily be willing to put that much time into something if they were not that passionate about it. And like you said, maybe this is where like the working smart applies, because you need to be able to do that in order to be more efficient. But maybe it didn't matter to you because you're like, hey, listen, you got to learn as you go too. I mean, you're not going to have all the answers from the get-go, especially when it does take that long. You do have parameters of technology that are outpacing you with everything going on, so you have to consider that as well.
It teaches you a lot about time management and what is important.
Mm-hmm.
There's an infinite amount of money in the world, but not an infinite amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back to Luke's comment about time value, money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's learning how valuable his time is versus.
Well, I think people forget too that it's the old cliche, like time is money. Like you have to factor that into everything you do. I mean, right now, like we could be doing something else that is probably making us money, even though we all are making this podcast, right, guys? That's what we want to tell people. But we have to consider all the factors when it comes to things, especially as we get older. Like, we don't have all the time in the world. Like, I don't know. I don't want to get so grim about it, but we're not going to make it one day. Like, someday it's all going to end. So we have to value our time a little bit better, especially when you start having kids. I think you have to consider that time as well. It's like, all right, I got to every day look at the calendar, be like, how much time? There's actually a guy that I follow on online, a political person, and he says that he literally blocks off time for his kids. He's like I have to schedule time on my calendar, be like, all right, I'm gonna spend time with my kids from here. And it seems like it's such a weird concept to people, but it's like, I think you literally have to do that to be the most efficient person you can. And
it's with like I don't do that. I don't block off time for my daughter, but you have to really focus on, and Dylan, this is some advice. You have to really focus on like that time, right? Especially when they're talking and walking around and asking questions and all that stuff, because it is exhausting. It's exhausting. In fact, I shared I shared a meme with Jesse the other day, which was like Yoda in Return of the Jedi, and basically it was saying like Luke asks so many questions that Yoda just up and dies in Return of the Jedi.
He's just like, he just takes a deep breath and then he's like,
I'm done. I can't handle this. That's how being a parent feels, especially to a toddler who's like asking the questions, right? But like you have to take a deep breath and you have to like cherish it, right? And like think about the answers that you're giving, because I feel like it's so easy to just brush it off and be like, I don't know, I'm tired, I don't know, I don't care, you're asking dumb questions, leave it alone. But like those questions are like the foundation of what that child believes and knows. So it's like you have to realize and recognize that like you're in the best time, and you're in the golden age of that child's like life, and you have to like really take the time to, okay, all right, you're asking me about like dirt and why dirt exists, like, okay, this is dumb, but like, okay, I'm gonna try and you have to try and like give the answer as best you can.
You're like, do you want the religious answer or the scientific answer? Which one do you want? Yeah. Which one do you want?
Luke, you're hitting on something that is literally my only goal to teach my son, and it is the one goal, the one lesson. And I'll probably repeat it until he's 30 or 40 because it's going to take that long to sink in. But it is the ability to be wrong.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
It will serve you through your entire life. You will be able to grow your career. You will be able to have successful relationships. You will be able to have friends. You will be able to have success. You will be able to do literally everything and anything that you want. People will love you and hang out with you if you can just have the ability to be wrong.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you are, but you have the ability to be.
Yeah. Actually, I've mentioned this before on this podcast at some point, which I'm sure all our fans remember exactly that moment.
They have it noted down on their notebooks.
Like at this exact time,
plural.
Yeah, they have every word we've said verbatim at a certain time code. But no, I've said this before, and I've said it to many people, is that one of my favorite traits in people is when they can admit when they're wrong. Because it says so much about a person to me. It's like, okay, you're not stubborn. You're trying to be honest. You're trying to be objective about things, and that means at least you're not going to be an arrogant person. Or again, like it's nothing but good news. Like, oh, good. Like, thank you. And I agree with everything you just said. That's awesome advice.
And that's also probably one of the hardest things to do.
Yep.
Is admit that you're wrong. Just because when that time comes and you do realize that you're wrong, it is the very last thing you want to do is admit it. No matter what scenario it's in, whether it's at work or it's at home, it doesn't matter.
Well, the worst one is when you're all by yourself.
Yeah.
You're like,
maybe I'm
this is not good.
Yeah.
I am in trouble.
I've got two thumbs and I'm pointing at the guy who screwed this all up.
Yeah, I think that, again, that just comes down to, I mean, maybe this is all tied together with just basic wisdom, which is, I think a lot of people that are probably, I think it's like a cliche that people that are generally wise, if you will, are usually the ones that say that they don't know, or they won't jump to conclusions about things. They'll be the first ones to say, I really don't know what the answer is. I'm just telling you what I think. Other than that, I simply just, I don't know. And I think that there's a lot to say for that. And speaking of which, I wanted to, like, another general question, which is, like, what would be, like, a life lesson for general education? We've been talking about, like, working smart, but what would be, like, something we could apply that to, like, education? Because, again, going back to our roots and our family, they valued education, but I don't think they valued it as much as we probably should have. It's no slide on them, but I think it's, like, I'll give you an example. My mom would be the kind of person where it's like, hey, what's this B? What's this B on this report card? Whereas my dad would be like, You got a C? All right, let's go to Baskin Robbins, and you pass. That's technically a pass. That type of thing.
You got through it.
Yeah, again, that's like there's a dichotomy there a little bit. And it's not necessarily like you have to get straight A's in order to be successful. So I'm kind of like wondering, I was just telling my wife that I saw someone post something about how community college always gets a bad rep because it's always like, oh, you go to community college, you didn't get into a university. And I think it's kind of a cliche now to say that, like, if you go to college, you're guaranteed a job. Like, no, it's not. Like, that's an old, I don't know what to call it. I was gonna say it's an old wives' tale, but it's not true. It's
old idiom?
Yeah. Maybe it's an idiom or something like that. But yeah, it's something where it's like, all right, and now thinking, if I have a kid coming into the world, what would I tell them about education and the value of that?
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
Yeah, I'm honestly interested in the answer to this. I don't have an answer just because I'm thinking, like, I was not interested in learning at all up to when I graduated high school. I just didn't care. I just wanted to pass the class as well as I could have and then just move on with my life. But I got interested in actual, like, education and learning when I started going to college. All of a sudden it was like, oh, I get to choose the classes, like I get to choose what I want to learn, kind of thing. And that was kind of like an intro to me being like, oh, this is actually super interesting. And like you start to see things in different perspectives and whatever. But I don't know how, like, if I went back in time to tell myself, like, actually pay attention in, like, whatever class, I don't know how I could convince myself. My younger self. I'm not sure.
That's a really good question. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson has a really good stance on this, which is his whole stance on, like, educating kids is not so much educating them on, like, I mean, obviously educating them on the sciences, but most of all educating them on having an urge, a hunger for learning. Like, teach a kid how to learn. Right. And that's the key. I like teach them curiosity. I don't know how to do that. Like you said, Joel, like, I don't know what the answer is. Like, I don't know it, but instill curiosity, and that will usher them through school. Theoretically.
And maybe it was a combination, or is a combination of, I mean, when you're that young, you get to a point where you're just stubborn, and school is all about basically forcing you to learn these specific topics that you don't sound interesting, immediately. So it's like that, like you said, Luke, that thirst for learning whatever that topic is never planted. Yeah. And it's never even attempted to be planted. You're just like, you have to learn this, and you better enjoy it. It's like, how am I going to enjoy this?
It's a chore. It's a chore. It's like you have to do this, and you have to get good grades. And it's like, okay, but like, why not try and make it fun? Why not try and make it, like, actually interesting? Because it is interesting, right? Like it is all interesting stuff. Like, you go through high school, you think back, like, all those topics that you learn. Okay, it could be boring in the day, but, like, you're learning about these, like, core fundamentals of, like, science and literature and all this stuff. Like, all that stuff is amazing stuff. But if you can instill that curiosity, I mean, you're golden.
I think a lot of it is about being powerful.
How so?
Yeah, in what way?
So, being curious is the kind of how, but being powerful is the why. So, the more you know, the more you learn, the more options become available when you're making decisions. And the more options you have, the more power you control.
Oh, okay.
So, like, power over your own life, kind of a thing. Like, power over.
Well, yeah. I think each subject kind of plays into it in a different way, right? Like, history, you understand why people made decisions that they made. You may not necessarily understand what they're going to make or the decision they're going to make in the future, but it will help you understand the possible decisions that they will probably make in the future. So you're going to understand, like, why somebody is going to make or do something that they're going to do. Math is going to tell you whether that was right or not. likely. English is going to be able to help you communicate or understand history, or communicate with people. I think there's a couple classes that were not taught, I'm assuming, when we were all kids, that should have been taught when we were kids. And one of those is finance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Balancing a checkbook.
Preach it, buddy. Preach it.
Holy mackerel. How is that not a class at the beginning of every child's life? Like, hey, guess what?
Right.
You're going to go out into this world, and this is $1. You're going to have to learn how to use this
Right.
to do things.
I work for a financial institution, and I think I've talked about this on this podcast before, but like as part of our community outreach programs, we actually go out to schools and do this type of teaching. We do these webinars and seminars on like basic savings and like how a bank works and how a checking account works and how to get an auto loan, how does credit work, all these things. We do this for like middle school all the way through college. And I'm not kidding you. The gambit, the entire spectrum from middle school to college, find these workshops so valuable. Every single kid in these workshops are like, this is the best thing ever. Super useful. And they ask questions. Every single one of them is engaged. And it's like, it's sad. It's like, make this a class. It would be the easiest thing in the world to make this a class.
Yeah, like this is actually a prime example where I can actually remember specifically something my dad did tell us. He gave us some wisdom, which is he used to tell Cody and I this. He's like, the one thing I tell you about school is take a business class. That literally was verbatim what he would say. Now, granted, that's a little vague. What do you mean business class? Like that could be, and there's not like, sign up for business, 101. Like I don't know where to find that, but as far as I know what he means, which is understanding the financials, how do you make more money, how do you work smart, all the things we've been talking about.
And how do you not go bankrupt?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, stuff like that. We're literally like, understand, like you said, we've heard this 1,000 times, the kids that complain, like, when am I going to use this? And I think there is a valid point when they claim these things. And I'm not knocking certain things that you do learn in, say, public school, which is, I think, what we all went through public school. And everybody always talks about, education reform. Everybody always talks about it. But I think it's just like a universal thing, like you said, Jesse. Like, I don't understand why that is not a fundamental thing you should learn. It's so key to living and to being successful, is learning how finances work. Like, well, how come it's not a requirement to know how to, like, open a bank account? I understand. Like, you should know how to do this, or like
or if there's a zero balance in it, that they're going to charge you $5 over and 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 over.
Exactly. Like, how useful would it have been if we did a whole semester just on like the NASDAQ, like how the stock market works? Like here's when you would be probably selling. Here's when you would be buying. Here's how much dividends this one gives you. That's all stuff like we learned post high school. It's not required to like be a functioning human.
I've shared this with Luke.
I'm still learning that.
Yeah. So Luke and I have talked about this a little bit. One of the things that I'm going to do for my kid is he's going to get allowance in stocks. So he has to buy the stocks. So he's going to pick them. I'm not going to like tell him what to pick. He's going to have to like pour over them, and whatever those stocks make, he can take out. So if I give him $1 and he earns 60 cents, he can take the 60 cents out if he wants to.
All right.
But if he leaves it in, the next time he, gets a bump, it's going to be higher. So the incentive is essentially to leave the money in because it's going to be generating more money. But I'm hoping to incentivize him to learn how to constantly get more from his allowance.
Yeah.
Right.
So, every week maybe I give him, in today's money, I guess it'll be like $10, but you figure out a stock that you can buy. What is interesting to you? Is it Pixar because you like, movies? Is it Disney because you like, Marvel? Whatever it is, figure out what you like, buy into it, and then learn everything about that company and that stock. Does it pay a dividend? Is it a growth stock? What are you predicting for next week? Trying to incentivize that constant watching of his investment and his money. I won't ever take away the seed, but again, like if it goes down, he doesn't get anything. If it goes up, anything that's above his seed, he can take out if he wants to.
Yeah. And I think like what Joel was mentioning too, like the challenge of that, especially when they're younger, is like, how do you convince them that this is really valuable information? Because they might just look, I mean, like we've all been kids before, of course, and we all remember what it was like the last thing we wanted to talk about was finances. It's the most boring thing. All we wanted to do was play GoldenEye, N64, and shoot each other on multiplayer. That's the only thing we wanted to do, or, you know, like whatever, like go drink soda and play. That's the only thing that's like awesome. But you're like, guys, there's a time for fun and you should enjoy your childhood. And those are all very valuable things. There's no denying that. But there's also a time of like, listen, guys, I'm telling you, you will only benefit yourself later if you do this instead. I'm telling you, like, just trust me on this. It's hard to make that stick because, like Joel said, how do you convince a kid where the only thing they're thinking about in a economics class is like if that girl likes me or not? Like,
Right.
I think you're asking the age-old question, Dylan. I mean, you know, this is the question of the ages. Like, I feel like our parents probably had the same question in their head, and they're like, I know what makes a successful human, but like, how do you convey that to a child? Like, I don't know that. I know
because I know
go ahead.
We've been told by our parents a billion times when we were in school, like, oh, it's important to get good grades because it'll help you later in life. They just like quoted that every month, it seemed like, but it never stuck, or it never like stuck. It was just like, whatever. Like that's future self's problem. I don't care right now.
There's an interesting, that's a really awesome quote that you just quoted, Joel, because I follow Adam Savage from the Mythbusters. Like, I am a huge fan of his. He has a channel, Tested, and that's a big thing of his. And it not so much in the terms of like education, but he talks about it in terms of like a project or like something in his shop or something like that. Like, you want to be kind to your future self always. And I think that that's another life lesson. Be kind to your future self, right? Like, and he puts it in terms of like something as simple as putting something away where it's supposed to go. I mean, that's easy, right? Like, you have something, you use it, and a lot of times you don't want to put it away. You just like lay it somewhere, like lose it or whatever. But when you go to get that thing in the future, the worst thing in the world is to go into that drawer or wherever you usually put it and it's not there. And you're just like, son of a, like, where did I put this thing? And you're like, you're kicking yourself because you didn't put it away, right? I think that's like, that's like such a wise thing, right? Like, when it's in your mind, do it. Not so much for today, but do it for tomorrow. And it's always going to pay off. Always. Even though it's like the most boring thing in the world. You don't want to do it 100%, but like, do it. Just do it. Yeah. It's easy. You know?
Absolutely.
Yep. I still haven't learned that because there are still dirty dishes in the sink right now.
Yeah. Well, the dishes never end. That's a rotating schedule. So there's no investment when it comes to dishes. I'm sorry, Joel. You just have to keep doing that for the rest of your life.
I feel like there is, some investment. Yeah, because like we all did chores, and I've always wondered, like what, like Jesse mentioned, what would be the incentive to teach my kid to do better at a chore? Like if I'm paying him a certain allowance, like to wash the car, like what could incentivize him to make a little bit more? Like how do you gauge that? Because it's really challenging. Obviously, I imagine that the tasks of being a parent are very overwhelming. But I do know, like I was thinking about this the other day, is that I don't know what the rules are of how to raise a kid successfully or whatnot. But I will say that if I do know of one rule, like that there's one thing I can say that I know for sure, like this is like the prerequisite to be a good parent. It's to make sure your kids are abundantly aware that you love them consistently. Like no matter what. Like that is like the core fundamental rule, is that you make sure that they are very much aware. I don't know what that means. I mean, that's very vague. What I'm saying is, like define love. We could be here all day about that. But as far as just like making it very much aware that you love them and you care about them.
It comes into play later. I just had this scenario play out today, the last couple days. I'll tell a story. So, Ellie's my daughter. She's been doing little video classes with her like daycare, right? Once a week.
Yeah.
And they had a little science experiment, which was vinegar and baking soda. And they had the laptop, vinegar, baking soda, and Ellie kept playing with the glass. She kept like poking at it. My wife was like, "Stop poking at that. It's going to tip." So she purposefully tipped it over. Tipped over onto wife's laptop.
Ugh.
No fun. The entire glass spilled onto her laptop. Right? So now comes punishment time. Now she's going to be 4. So punishment is like, it's an interesting concept, right? Because she doesn't quite grasp it 100%. But it has to come with a lot of explanation. This is why you're punished. This is why you're being punished. This is what your punishment is. You don't get to do the things that you want to do, basically. So the last 2 days, she hasn't gotten any TV, any screen time, none of that. She hasn't been able to play with anybody, anything. And we keep reminding her of that. So she's been moping around. Well, I see her moping around, walking around with her head hung, and I called her in. I was like, "Ellie, come in here." I was like, "I got to tell you this." I was like, "You know Mommy and Daddy love you. And we love you no matter what. Like, I don't care how much trouble you get into. You're still, we love you. Like, no matter what, right?" And she's like, okay. Like, I don't even know if she gets it or not. But to your point, Dillon, like, that comes as an urge to me. Like, I have to tell her that because I can see that she's bummed out. Even though she's in trouble, I have to set that baseline, right?
Yeah,
of like, you're not going to fall below this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna get to that level where I hate you or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, that's just part of that, like, natural, like, you know, I'm not gonna throw you to the wolves or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you're in trouble still.
Yeah. And I think that's just like, again, like I said before, that has to be at least one. There's got to be more requirements somewhere, but we could debate those all day long. But I feel like this is like a universal thing that we can all agree on. Just make sure your kids are aware that you love and care about them. And it doesn't mean like one day you tell them that. It's like you have to do that forever.
Every day.
Yeah, every day. Like, you have to essentially make it a very big point to them. And it's not going to be perfect, but you just got to make sure that, especially early on in the early years, that they're very aware of that. Do you agree with me, Jesse? Or you're like, "No, dude, I'm going to hate on my son"?
No, I was just dreading the fact that I'd ever have to punish Booker.
Oh, man. Like, how old is Booker?
He's 6 months as of May 1st.
Whoa, 6 months old, man. How's it been? Because I'm gearing up for that.
Awesome. If you have a partner who is staying home taking care of the child 24/7, I can't imagine what it would be like if you did not have that.
Still working that out. We have a lot of family support nearby, especially her family. Her family's like, "Please bring them by every day." We're like, "Okay, well."
Well, if you have family nearby, that's golden.
Yeah.
We do not. We have some family that randomly shows up.
We don't know who they are. They're just strangers.
Yeah, just strangers.
They claim their family.
Yeah, they claim their family. But my dad is not, like, I love my dad dearly. And like I said, he probably shares a lot with Ray, but he's also not like a, you can't just leave a kid with him.
Some
he's gonna
parents
be like,
are better equipped
he's
than
just
others.
going to like hold it out there and be like,
What do I do? What do I do with this?
What's happening?
Can I golf with this? Is this? Can I just put it? What do I do with it?
Where's the stand?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something where, like, weirdly enough, I know my wife's parents, we could leave them with the baby and they would be all right. But both my mom and my dad, it's been so long that I'm like, I think we have to test the waters before we feel comfortable leaving you with them, because it literally has been like 20 years. You guys know what you're doing? You know, that type of things.
Yeah, that's a good thing to check on, because Luke can probably attest to this. Our shared family members are. Sometimes you got to make sure that they know what they're doing. when you leave your child with them.
Well, I think, to be fair, I think we waited a solid 6 months or so before we actually left the kid with anybody for like an extended period of time. I think it was like a solid 6 months before, we were there for the first several months.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, obviously that comes naturally. Like you get to the point where it's just like, you feel more comfortable. You're like, okay, the kid can like, obviously the kid's not going to like roll over onto his face and like smother himself or something, like there's like weird things that you kind of get a sense for. Yeah, that's a good point.
Suffice to say, I would not leave him with my dad.
Moral of the story.
He's got to be a little bit older. A little bit older. Got to be sit on the couch and watch sports with him, and
there you go.
Then we're good.
All right. I think we might be running out of time on this one, but before we leave, I would just want to know Cody's thoughts on anything. We've heard from pretty much everybody but Cody.
What do you think
about just trading crypto this whole time?
Yeah, broke.
Cody's a big advocate for crypto. I'm outing you again on something else.
Yeah.
How's crypto doing? It's doing okay today.
Yeah.
Which crypto? There's like
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Bitcoin. All right.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be dividing soon.
It's an emotional roller coaster, but the best thing is to just put your money in and walk away and don't look at it.
For 10 years,
it's up about 3% today.
Years. Yeah. Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's.
Cody, did you buy any of the small ones like Ripple?
I've bought other ones, but not Ripple. Actually, I think I did a long time ago, but I sold it. But yeah, I have others like Litecoin, Ethereum. Lisk, IOTA, bunch of those.
I only have Litecoin and Ethereum.
Yeah, those are good ones.
Didn't get
those
into Bitcoin,
solid.
huh?
Those are the blue chips.
I did not get into Bitcoin. I actually gave a talk on Bitcoin in 2003, and they did not take my own advice. I said everybody here should take $100 in cash and buy some Bitcoin, and then I didn't do it. And if I had,
man,
let's not talk about how I would be right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a sore subject.
I literally
What
I
year
gave
was
a
that?
talk to like 60 boomers. Like you guys know like Lions Club and Elks Club, like all those old social clubs.
Yeah.
So I gave a talk at Exchange Club to like 60 boomers about Bitcoin and how it all worked and how the whole thing functions. And then I said, everybody here should have like $100. You guys can all spare $100. Buy some Bitcoin, and then if the zombies attack, you can like buy stuff. I didn't buy it.
Oh man,
And they're all filthy rich now.
painful.
I don't remember the exact number. Somebody can probably run it now, but it was like in the hundreds. It was super depressing. Like if I had just spent $100, I would have not had to do a whole lot now.
Yeah, I think it was like when Bitcoin started, it was like $13 or something like that, or like it was like hovering the hundreds for like a while, or like the low, 50s, or like some of that.
It was in the pennies.
Yeah, it was definitely in the.
Oh God,
$100 worth, and then now it's at what
9,000.
9,300 roughly.
Yeah.
don't rub it in Jesse's face.
I'm seeing if I can look it up right now.
It's 9,298 on Robinhood.
Yeah, but what would it have been in 2003 when I would have bought it for $100?
no
What would
idea.
that be now?
Free.
Yeah, it was literally free.
$0.
Oh God, that's horrible.
It was harder to buy back then too. It wasn't as easy.
Yeah,
as it is
I wouldn't
now.
have known, even if I was the age I was now and had like a little more sense of money. I wouldn't have known how to buy Bitcoin back in the day, let alone would I have done that. I think anybody who did that was pure speculation.
So I will say I got about 80% of the way through the process, and it was hours. And at one point, I just literally was like, "This is taking too long. I don't care."
This isn't worth $3 million.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like if future self could have come back and been like, whoosh, right on the back of the head, and been like, "You figure it out."
Yeah, that certainly is one of those stocks where, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot we could go back in time for, but at least in our lifetime, that's one. I guess it's not technically a stock, but if an investment, we can go back in, be like, you probably should buy at this point. Like
I mean, like what, like it's so difficult to say though, because
you couldn't do it.
You I mean, realistically, you would have bought it for $100, and then when it hit, like if you started at pennies, when it hit $100, you would have been like, sell.
Yeah.
Right.
This is very true.
And then here it is at $10,000, and you're like, what?
Right.
Why did I do that?
Or when it peaked at like 20.
Jesse just lived the alternative Back to the Future 2, where Biff just throws away the sports.
Pretty much. Or actually, what would have probably happened to me back? I don't remember. It would have been after. I don't remember what year it was, but I probably would have lost it. If I had bought it back then, I think you had to save it on a thumb drive. There was not like an online place to save it, and I guarantee I would have lost it.
Yeah,
Right.
And I would have been one of those people with like, I've got like millions of dollars hitting somewhere on this thumb drive. If I could just find this thumb drive,
It's like losing a lottery ticket. Like, it's in here somewhere, type of thing.
which is probably worse. That you had bought it and you did have it in your possession, and now you lost it, and you're
Yeah.
Oh,
man,
worse.
Painful. Anyway. All right. Well, I think we're out of time, but thank you, Jesse, for coming on board. We'll have to do this again. We'll have to talk about something that's maybe a little more lighthearted. This was a deep, emotional roller coaster
conversation.
I know. We were getting like really intense about these things, but next time we'll do something a little more fun. Let's do that. So you're a fun guy, and we have to talk about fun stuff. We don't have to be so serious.
Supposedly.
That's what I
supposedly.
We can talk about why Army of Darkness wasn't named the Medieval Dead.
This is true.
Okay.
We can talk about
Is it
that.
medieval or
We gotta
medieval?
give you a whole episode.
The whole episode.
A whole episode devoted just to that. I guarantee you there's a podcast out there there's probably 1,000 podcasts about Army of Darkness right now.
Yeah.
Just like there is anything else. All right. Well, anyway, thank you everybody out there for watching and listening. Of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're there, or check us out on SoundCloud, iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're busy all the time, but I guess until next time, work smart. Take our advice.
Practice.
Practice. Yes, that is true.
Practice.
Perfect.
Are we talking about practice?
Is that where too? Yeah. Allen Iverson. Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, thank you everybody. All right. Bye.
Yay.
See you.